welcome to your Art Brunch 75 with our dear guests today, Shaghayegh Yassemi and Katie Lee. I'm really proud to introduce you and have the possibility to moderate this talk today. It will be around 1 hour talk with a live installation performance. And maybe just 2 words about these artists today. Katie Lee comes from Melbourne, and she was here already in 2019 in Krems for an art project in Veronica, but maybe you can tell later a little bit more. And this time also since July, there's 1 month in Graz under this Styrian Artists in Residence. And Shaghayegh, kindly welcome, Katie. Shaghayegh is working and lives in both Iran and Canada, and was in Graz. And forget to say that Katie was hosted by Schillerstraße atelier and Shaghayegh in Schaumbad for almost 3 months, and in summer. So you're working mostly also both in this field of performance, and you mostly sculptural and objects, videos, and also Shaghayegh, I think we are mostly focused on videos. And for the first part of this brunch today, we will have a 20-minute, around 20-minute long video, and also in combination with the performance. So I will make it short now, and I wish you a good artist talk for the beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks for coming in this hot weather. I am going to start to talk about walking performance before having a virtual walking performance together with you, with Katie. So it was about 2 years ago that I traveled to Canada during COVID, and I was in quarantine for 14 days in a place that I didn't know. I didn't know even where this place was located at. So something occurred to me, and I understand that, well, I am even happy with delivery of toothbrushes. So I started to think about delivering letters to random residential houses. And then I had this walking performance in 2 cities, Toronto and Tehran. My plan was to have one in Graz too. I don't know if that can happen or not, but anyway, in both Tehran and Toronto, there are 2 very long streets. One is Valiassa Street. I am going to show it to you, but on the map, but which is in Tehran. It's about 16 kilometers. And the other one is in Toronto, Yonge Street, which is again 16 kilometers if you count it in the borders of the city, because in that case, it goes further away, but it's outside of the city. So I was thinking that I'm going to walk during these long streets and deliver letters to random residential houses. And I hand printed with lino stamp some poetry and put it on the envelopes. In some envelopes, there are also prints of leaves, and I delivered them. So the name of this project is somehow the organic pathways through an artistic research. The reason is that the first plan was to walk during through these long streets for 16 kilometers in 1 day. Then I realized that, okay, I am walking for 4 kilometers for each 1 kilometer. What that means? It means that I ended up walking about 150 kilometers for these 2 16 kilometers. I will tell you why in a second when me and Katie have a virtual performance and show you how this works. But before that, let's show some excerpts from my working performance in Tehran. So beforehand, I and Katie were discussing that what elements kind of affect these working performances. And one of the things that we were discussing was the artist mood, performer's mood, wanderer's mood, whatever you want to call them. But when you are walking, you are carrying whatever you have in your mind and heart with you as well, other than your backpack, which can be very heavy. But the weight of your thoughts. If you are happy, you are not walking, you are, dancing. When you are sad, you are like, when you are tired or when it's hot, like today. So the first thing can be the performer's own mood. I hope that you can see the performer here. The Google map. Join the map. This is the starting point of the street, Tajrish Square. It is the north part of the city, so there are lots of mountains above this square. And if you go from Tajrish Square to the southern end of this street, you will have lots of temperature difference. Like in the winter time, you cannot start at the southern part with, I don't know, nothing in the air. And then in the middle of the way, you can see raining, then heavy raining, and then in Tajrish Square, you will have snowing. So that's how different this street can be in terms of the temperature and other stuff. So would you please lead us in this? Let's walk.
Sure. I'm wondering, what's the smell that I can smell in the square? Is there something here that's cooking or?
Yeah, lots of street foods, maybe fried foods. Not in the summer. In the summer, you can smell sour sort of food. You know what I mean?
Do we need to walk on any particular side of the street, or can we just go?
We can do whatever.
Okay. I'd like to start on the shady side. Which side is the shadiest?
Oh, what time is it? It's so hot right now. I guess it's around 40 degrees.
When I'm walking, I like to stay really close to the buildings and start that way.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess let's come to this side of the street. Okay. Because I think that in that side we are going to have lots of sun.
Okay, cool. So what are these buildings here?
Okay. So here is so crowded. We need to walk very slowly.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. Do you care for seeing the bazaar as well? Or
Yeah,
not?
sure.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Do you want a face mask?
No.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
So in the bazaar, we are going to it's so hot. even worse than here. We're going to have lots of sour sort of foods. We like to have those kind of things. So we make big plates of smashed plums and cherries and stuff, and then dry them off in the sun. And then they sell it in that bazaar.
Okay.
It's so delicious,
Wow.
and your mouth can get watery just cross-passing them. But are you hungry, or do you like to?
Not so much at the moment, actually. Maybe just looking is better for me.
Okay, so let's look.
Okay.
There are lots of people here. So let me tell you something about this place. This place is a place for some sort of religious ritual. But right now it becomes a food market. So once a year, I guess, they again change it to that ritual place for ritual performances, but the other times you can just buy stuff.
Oh, so like it becomes a religious space again after a certain period of time.
So people gather around this sort of stage in the middle. And then there are some sort of performances which considered to be Iranian theater in some ways.
Okay. And do you participate, or can you also watch?
Participate?
Like not me, but does everybody who's in there participate, or do some people watch?
There are people who are just watching. I think that they serve you with tea and sweet things and stuff. I'm not sure if, I don't know. For women, I'm not sure how they participate. Maybe men would do some stuff like, I don't know.
So how old is the building?
I think about between 200 and 300 because it was once ruined because of a natural incident. So anyway, yeah. But I think right now it's not the same, but the original one was. Do you like to watch something?
Yeah.
And then continue? So
Sure.
Always children on the streets.
So,
Always children on the streets.
yeah. They're after a cat. This is the Tajush Square. It's better to not to cross the street, but I'm doing it anyway. You can see it's not that safe to do that. Okay, do you like to go further away or do you like to?
Is there a place where we can see the mountain? Or is it not visible until we get later down the road?
Yeah, it was visible even in that footages, but I'm not sure if you. The mountains are visible here.
Oh, wow.
The mountains are visible in when there is not lots of air pollution.
Mhm.
They're visible further away, even from the southwest part, because Valias Street is somehow a straight street.
So is the street that we're working on going directly towards the mountains?
No, we are going the
Away
opposite
from
way.
the mountains.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, very interesting.
So we start somehow from the mountains.
So this is sort of
we
the
are very
beginning.
close right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, nice.
That's
Okay, great.
why it's cool.
Yeah,
Not that hot.
yeah. I'm curious about the path when you're walking along the street. Is it possible for you to walk on the sidewalk, or are we always walking in the middle of the road?
No, there are two very huge pavements at both sides of the street.
But normally you're walking on the road?
No.
No?
What do you mean?
I mean, when you're walking and recording, are you walking on the street or are you walking on the sidewalk?
On the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
It's too huge, so maybe
Really?
you were thinking that I'm walking in
Yeah. So
yeah.
then the little path that goes up is to the people's houses.
Mm.
The little part where you might posting through the letter.
Those are the connecting streets to the main street. So maybe in that some of the footages I was in the middle of the street because I was trying to decide which house I wanna
Sure.
deliver to. But
and is there a section where there's more people living except for, or is it all mixed with shops?
no, it's not actually. I guess in the main street you can mostly find the shops, but when you just turn to the alleys and then it's just houses, not shops anymore.
I like that. I like the fences and trying to see whether I can see through the cracks in the fences. Maybe we could go that way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure. I think I have something on the images, so
Okay.
let's continue with that.
Perfect.
I hope it's not a long pause. No. So this is the bazaar we were walking in.
Yeah. Where do they grow these?
Different places. I think some of these comes from north of Tehran. Also around Tehran, there are lots of fields for vegetation. And also from other cities. It's very central.
Can you get lost in here?
If you go to the alleys, yes. There are lots of tiny alleys around the bazaar. This is my favorite thing. Do you know what those are?
No.
Those are rose petals,
Ah.
the things that they make rose water with.
Ah, yeah.
It's very useful also against infections.
Yes. So I guess the other element is people. When you want to follow them, when they have beautiful scarves. Oh, these two were speaking in German. Maybe you can understand what they were saying. This is Tehran's Museum of Cinema. He is a child laborer, unfortunately, but he was a very fun friend. I want to tell you the story. So he is selling Hafiz poems, not like, yeah, we have a tradition of asking Hafiz our questions, and we open the book and then consider whatever poem that comes to our face, our response to that question. So some of these child laborers, unfortunately for them, they sell responses, Hafiz responses. So I bought a poem from him since I find him very nice. And then I asked him, I'm sorry. Can you read this for me? And I said, no. And then I was like, don't you go to school? Because he kind of looked like 8 years old. And I said, yeah, I do go to a school. I said, then how come you cannot read it? And then I realized that it's the writing that is very complicated for him, because we have sophisticated sort of calligraphies. So he wasn't ready to read that. Then I wrote Tehran on a paper and showed it to him, asked, what is that? And he said, it's Tehran. And then he wrote me back at Tehran, and we became friends. The fun part was that I was asking him to deliver one of my envelope to a random passerby. And then I saw in his eyes that he likes to have that envelope for himself. I told him, but you cannot read it, can you? But he was like, well, I can try. So I gave it to him, and I told him, if you like to, you can respond to this envelope this way and that way. This was the story. So I guess the second element for me is the people. Sometimes you feel like you want to make friends with some of them. Sometimes you want to follow some of them, not like in a creepy way, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know which streets they are turning into or something like that. And sometimes you just want to avoid some people. So
when we're walking this street, our only intention is just to spend the time on that one street. We're not trying to travel to get anywhere. The intention is just to go as far as we go on this day, on this street.
Yes.
Yeah. And is that child always here, or is he sometimes...
I didn't get that.
Is the boy always here at that point on the street?
Oh, the child labor. I guess they changed their areas, but there were times, like now I don't live there anymore, but while I was there in Tehran, I had a few friends between them. You know the area that you can find them, but not a specific spot, you know.
Amazing that they're selling poems. That's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful, but it's not for them.
Yeah, not great either. It's kind of ironic to have the children selling poems that they can't read. Yeah. It's sort of heartbreaking in a way.
Yeah, they need the money. There are some of them that they say that they are being organized by grown-ups who are using them. But in some cases, as I told you, I had some friends between them. I know that child. So it wasn't an organization, it was him who needed that job. So there are different cases, but and some of them are from other countries around Iran.
No, it's just it's not so much the child labor, it's more for me the mechanism of distributing a poem. And it's sort of like a fortune cookie poem for us. It's like really mimicking the way that we're walking now, to have this chance and to take this emotional kind of moment from the poem and take it now with us on the walk.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Let me try something. I don't want to translate it, but since it comes and since we want to talk about poetry later, I had this poem on my, let me read the first verse for you. Okay, it's a sad one. So, سینه از آتش دل در غم جانانه بسوخت. آتشی بود در این خانه که کاشانه بسوخت. تنم از واسطه, it doesn't seem right, but no, I mean the version is not correct because I know lots of prophets. But anyway, تنم از واسطه دوری دلبر بگداخت، جانم از آتش مهر رخ جانانه بسوخت. Thanks for it. So it's a sad one, but I love poems.
Oh, there's a tragedy.
Yeah, a broken heart.
Oh no.
Yeah. But it's like this project, it kind of broke my heart, you know, because I tried to have this project like a video, but you are watching a premiere project, because I wasn't able to export it. So, you know, it's talking about broken hearts. Let's go up. So this is not Valley Associates, this is one of the alleys, which is connected to the main street.
What kind of trees are they?
Chinar is mostly plain tree. Do I make sense?
Yeah. We have those in Melbourne.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a terrible idea.
Why?
Well, the British planted all these plane trees all through the city. And then they just, because the spores from the plane tree release into the wind, because Melbourne is a really windy city. Everybody cries for a month because they have the spores from the trees blowing, but also because it just doesn't suit our environment to have that type of tree in our city. It's like an import from the British who thought that they would be beautiful for our city, but it's not a good idea for us. But it's interesting that they're there as well.
Actually, Valias is very famous for its plane trees. So the person who has started to think about this street as a street also planted these plane trees. So some of them are very old, like about, I don't know, more than 200 years old or something. So this part is mostly about the things that are written on the, I don't know, walls or wherever. And how they can be inviting or encouraging or vice versa. Since you cannot read Farsi, this place had lots of don't park here. And I felt like, okay, it's a very angry house. I don't want to deliver poetry. And then I saw the final one, which was don't block our window from natural light with your parking. And then I realized that their window, their kitchen is right there. So I delivered it from there. It says that here there is a cat living, so please be careful and don't make lots of noises. This is a poem.
Who would put that there?
You don't know, you never
Mystery.
know. It's like, you know how we also have lots of graffitis, but I think that we mostly have poems here and there.
Nice.
As I discussed it with you, in our culture, poetry has a very important role. So it's somehow connected to our everyday life. Either we know it or we don't know it. But even in the streets, you can hear lots of poetry without people knowing that they are using it, you know? So you don't know who puts these poems here and there, but there are poems.
Beautiful.
And for me, the final part is how your senses can lead you in the street. Your first question was about the smells. So this particular space was a smell amazing, like springtime. We have lots of jasmine in May who are like smelling like heaven, if you know how heaven can smell. And also lots of white mulberries. this is a mulberry tree.
Can you eat the white mulberry fruit?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never
It's
seen
very
white mulberries
sweet
before.
and
Really?
yeah, it's delicious.
Hmm.
I don't think if there are any. Oh, watch this, curious.
Oh.
It scares me because it was jumping from my head. And look, this one. I really wish I can be this relaxed.
Are they pets?
No, they are
Street
street
cats?
cats.
They're the owners, the main owners of the city.
Yeah.
The cats.
To be honest, yes.
The people who look after them, they seem quite
Yes.
well fed. Do they let you touch them?
Here, this
The
one?
cats?
Oh, yeah. It depends, but yeah, mostly they like you to like caress them.
Pet them.
Yeah. We get through this. Oh, I'm so happy. You don't know how problematic this was. So, yeah, I think. Do you like to talk about this walk, or do you like to go further away? Whatever.
I think talk would be nice. Yeah. I mean, up to you. I have some questions that I'd like to ask you as well.
Please.
I think we might transition into maybe talking a little bit about, I call her Poppy because I can't pronounce her Iranian name. So I've tried a few times and it's just doesn't come off my tongue. So the word, her name means poppy. So yeah, you probably already know that, but anyway. So Poppy and I only met recently on the residency, and we both discovered that we have an interest in this process of walking and making these kind of observations. So we've actually been walking together in Graz a few times, and these conversations come up about the relationship between walking, looking, poetry, and maybe, I guess, for us both here in a strange city, what does it mean to not understand what we see compared to perhaps the sort of familiarity that you have with the place there? So when I'm walking with you in Tehran, there's lots of things that I don't understand. So maybe my pathway through the city is quite different to yours. And I guess this is perhaps what you're talking about when you describe it as an organic pathway. So the organism of the human is the pathway through based on these different feelings and things like that. But something that happens to me sometimes when I'm walking in a city where I don't understand the language and I don't understand the writing and even what people want from me is I start to feel like I'm maybe more like doing a dance, you know, where I'm starting to feel like I'm in a slightly separate world a little bit. And so I can navigate through without sort of absorbing the meaning of everything in there. I'm wondering, is it very different for you to walk in a different city and using this organic pathway through research? Like, do you feel different when you walk in Canada or Graz with this kind of motivation to move?
I think walking can be even different from time to time in the same place. So I really agree with you. All of these different languages, different unfamiliar sort of scenes can be very important. But I don't know, I remember that my first week in Graz was like, I was so excited about everything. I wasn't able to understand that the street that comes to our residency is so steep. After 1 week, I just realized that, oh, it's so steep. It's hard to bike because I was really excited.
So exciting, yeah.
Then after a while that I get more familiar with the area, not that I'm not excited, but I was thinking that maybe fresh eyes has something to do with that excitement in the first encounter. But again, as an artist, I think it's very important to find your way of thinking about areas in new ways. So maybe you can get bored, okay, it's an everyday route that I'm taking. Then again, you can find something new without a different language. Or so I'm not sure if I'm responding to you or not?
No, I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess another thing that I'm interested in is how, the open camera is like another eye.
Mhm.
And so when you're traveling and you're moving with the camera, I guess you're sort of absorbing the position of an audience in a way that you would have if you were doing the improvisation that we do here together, where we have the audience that has a pressure or an impact or a sensation that we receive from the audience as well. So the camera becomes the sort of audience, I guess, in a way for you. But I'm just curious because, one of the approaches that you seem to take is to have the camera on all the time and then later to take the footage and to kind of select from that footage. So what's the relationship between the sort of continuous streaming, of the footage and then coming back later to make these kind of selections that you do? There's one thing Poppy told me was that she had 50 hours of footage to create 14 minutes for today. So is that also a poetic pathway through the research as well for you to come back to make these points? And how do you manage this kind of almost, which is my feeling is that I want to hoard footage. I'm like it when you become when you become like a field recorder, which is the same thing as like sound recording, people who make sound recordings, they just want everything to be captured, because life is the artwork. So how do you then come back to, or how do you not make so much footage that you become like a encyclopedia of your walking, and then how do you come back to make those sort of editing decisions?
I think there are several questions within your maybe one question. I really like that part that you said that it's also a poetic sort of choice. I was amazed. This walking happened in May, maybe 3 months ago, and I didn't take a look at them because I didn't want to. I wanted to have a fresh eye. And when I started to watch them, I realized that there are parts that you can see my excitement. Because, for example, I am curious about, what's that there? There are parts that wind is coming. So it's not only my clothing that is somehow dancing. I am happy. It seems like my shadow is dancing. There are parts that I am furious. I'm covering the camera. I just want to go, I just want to deliver this envelope. I just leave the place. So I guess I don't think that camera serves as an audience. It serves as you, but when you are observing the whole thing from a different view. Although, because I was wearing the camera here, it's not that much of difference in height. But when you are seeing a street as a wanderer, as someone who is walking through that street, you also are carrying lots of things. Sometimes you are not even present in that street, because I don't know, your phone is ringing, your mind is somewhere else. But then that camera doesn't have any of these things. It's just recording, So when you watch them later, you say, oh, that person is staring at me. Oh, this one is saying something to me, and I didn't realize, oh, what a beautiful door. I didn't see that. Or I see this one and it seemed very beautiful to me, and it's not beautiful in the footage. So I guess it's very different sort of experience when you watch them. It's very, I guess it's very time consuming. It can drive you crazy because there are lots of footages, but it's also so fun, and you can learn a lot about your own self when you are watching these footages. Actually, when I was talking to those children who were playing with that cat, I never have this problem not to be able to pronounce the. But when I'm talking to them, I'm saying the, which can be a problem of pronouncing. I don't know where that comes from. I was like, oh, is it me, the? What's that? Because the is not hard for me. And come on. So anyway, I think that it's very interesting to watch them. And in terms of how you pick them, I don't know. Then my filmmaker character should come, because you need to have a tempo, you need to have a rhythm. When you are in the street, as we discussed, we have everything together. Everything is alive, but camera is not alive. So if you want to create a live experience, if you want to have a video that communicates something, you need to do that with editing, which we automatically do it when we are walking.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know a friend of mine told me years ago that she wished that she could just record with her eyes and not have the camera as the kind of extra thing. And I remember at the time thinking sounded, I don't know, I was kind of thinking, don't just capture everything. But the comment has stayed with me forever, because I just, this kind of idea of trying to grasp this bit and this bit and this bit and put them together is the experience of walking. And the only way you can really do that is to capture everything, which for me is almost like, the Louis Bourget's story, The Exactitude of Science. Is a story where he makes a map of the world at the same scale as the world. So it's a one-to-one map of the world. And so if you try to unfold it, it actually just takes up the same space as the ground, because it has to have everything in it. So it's this kind of feeling of wanting to capture that moment exactly when the cat looked over, but you're also wanting to capture the surprise that you felt because you didn't see it beforehand. So it is like a beautiful kind of equivalence to poetry, where later you go back and you sift through and think, it was that moment, that sensation with the cat that I want to try to kind of expand, or let people to see that, get them to experience that exact moment. But it's kind of, I guess that to me is like a way of visualizing sensations, or affect, the impact of the city or these encounters that they have with you. And I guess another consideration I've had in the last few years with COVID and being alone so much is trying to kind of reconcile or sort of separate out what is me having this kind of overwhelming sort of solo experience, and what's possible to share through image, or does it have to come back through another form of art to kind of transform it out, So I guess the other thing that you do is actually make films where you select scenes and you put together footage to sort of construct an image. And how do those two bodies of work kind of relate to each other, do you think?
Like the performance and video making.
Yeah, so when Poppy's made some beautiful short films where, it looks like a walking performance, in that it seems like the character in the film has arrived at a place and climbed up somewhere and sitting and looking, for example. But later, if you talk to Poppy, she says, no, I selected this place. It's not local. I've made it looks like it's connected, but it's not. So there's this kind of second version of the walking performance that is a much more constructed version. So I'm curious about the footage where you're sort of making these live edits, the live cat, the live children, how you're trying to kind of come back to this moment of poetic experience that you had, versus kind of translating that into a cinematic kind of experience. Do you see the works sitting beside each other, and could they become the sort of almost like you wouldn't have to tell somebody, was this a walking performance or was this a film? I mean, or are they very different bodies of work in your own mind?
I think the process is the same. When I was, the films that you are mentioning are before COVID. So we were free to make whatever we wanted to. And the process of working and finding those locations for those films is the same. I was experiencing the whole thing. And then, for example, finding a rooftop, finding a place to do this thing, to aim a character or whatever. But so the process is the same. But when it came to the final production for film, then there are so many different elements, like there are a script, there are lighting, there are different things that you need to be careful about because it's a film.
Sure.
So the production is very different. And I think that there is a feeling, so I call these things that I make out of the material of these working performances, I call them mostly video, and I use them as installation. So the plan is to have them parallelly Toronto at one wall, Tehran at another wall, and then people will cross paths and experience the whole thing, which is edited again. But it has some sort of live experience because I'm not aiming the camera. My body is attached to the camera. So camera is part of my body. I'm not deciding to, yes, I see the cat and I see it's beautiful.
About poetry, and we're also using this idea of the virtual walking performance, or was it just the poetry reading? Did you want to talk a little bit about those workshops?
Sure. While I was here, I had this poetry performance workshop virtually with some theater students in Tehran. And so the whole idea for me was for them to be able to read Goethe's West-Eastern Divan, which is influenced by Hafez Divan. And they were reading it in Farsi, but we don't have the problem to be connected to poetry in the culture I'm coming from, because we are already connected to the poetry. The problem is that we have lots of paradigms of reading poetry. We think that we should do this to, read the poetry, somehow like Shakespearean way of, English speakers reading Shakespeare. So I wanted to break that way, and I asked them to just go in the street, walk around, and find a place that they feel comfortable enough to read the poetry from the paper. They don't need to read it loud, and just come back to the workshop and tell me what happened. At first, some of them were very shy, some of them were very proud. So one of them told me that I went in the middle of the University of Tehran's yard. I read the poetry. I was like, yay. The other one were like, I am so shy. I wasn't able to do it in my own place hall. So I went to my room and I was on my bed and I read it like this. And I was like, good too. But then we changed this. So each of them had their personal sort of exercises that I gave them weekly. And the result was terrific. I really liked the way that they break those paradigm of reading poetry in their specific way, and they came up with their own version of reading poetry. So yeah.
What's beautiful about that is that you're almost kind of curating another experience that other people can arrive at when they're walking. So these kind of performances that occur in the streets now sort of create a sort of magical moment for somebody else in a way, which is a really nice strategy, and to not do it with control. So you don't choreograph where they go and how they do that, but they just create this sort of moment that someone could happen across. It's a really nice way to kind of expand your walking project in a way, but without being the body and without even actually having to see it yourself. You're listening to their experience back through the workshop.
Yeah.
So where do you see that workshop experience going next? Are you sort of hoping to develop it further, or what's the sort of
My hope was to have a German version of this workshop here or virtually in the future with German speakers, again with Goethe's Divan, but with German reading of these poems.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then having a sound installation of combination of these two in two different languages with the footages of the streets. And I made a short video out of the material of that workshop and also my working in Graz, which is going to be a screen in the August in the festival, IF Festival.
Fantastic. Where is the festival?
It's in Canada.
Fantastic. So you've already used the footage from walking in Graz together with that thing. Fantastic. That sounds beautiful.
But I didn't yet have the German speakers experience.
Yeah, sure. Did you have questions as well?
No, that's the movie that you don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
We can't live stream it because it's going into a festival, but there'll be an opportunity to watch it after that, I think. Yeah.
Sure.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I have to say that the way that Poppy makes films and kind of repeats or mimics this walking process in her filmmaking is really special. It's sort of, you know, as someone who also makes walking films, I recognize the methodology that you're using in the quite constructed filmmaking that you're doing has a very natural kind of experimental approach. It doesn't feel like a film. It feels like a walking video, which is really, I think, what makes the work really special is that it's kind of, it's a very unusual way of working, I think, between this very specific written script and then but yet having it come across so much like improvisation.
Exactly. That's what I also saw, that you have to be always in the moment when you're working. You react to something, you see something. It's not like, I mean, maybe it's similar to ride a bike, but with your car you cannot do that.
No, that's right.
You cannot stop immediately and look.
But I think even on the bike, it goes too fast.
Yeah, it's too fast.
You know,
exactly.
Like if you were going to stop every time you wanted to sort of, I mean, I love what Poppy said about using her body as a camera, you know, not just the eye now, because we've changed our relationship to that lens, haven't we, with, you know, this remote kind of thing. So, you know, on a bike or in a car, you have those same experiences. You still have the poetic moments, but they're so fast. And if you made the film, it would make everybody feel terribly sick. So it's kind of interesting that I mean, one of the things that happens to me when I walk as well is that I get overstimulated sometimes. I get too excited. And there's a history as well of talking about writers and thinkers and artists and scientists who walk in order to think, you know, and so when I walk, I'm constantly taking notes and wanting to sort of capture the movement that starts to happen from my body in my brain, starts to sort of make connections again. Whereas if I'm sitting in the desk at home, I can't agitate that. So sometimes when I go out, then it's too much actually, because I've got the notes coming and I've got what's happening now, and I feel like I'm sort of VJing all this stuff, and it's sort of a bit extreme, you know. Do you also have those sort of sensations of generating the ideas for the work as you walk? Is that sort of part of the process as well? Yeah.
Whenever I think I am out of ideas, I just go to work.
It's amazing, isn't it? Sort of like being it's sort of like a creative mechanism, or being like a camera yourself in a way. It's really beautiful. You just have to work out a way to edit within your body as well. And then maybe you've got a whole new system. It's beautiful. Thanks, Poppy.
Okay, it's now 12 o'clock, but very nice to hear. But maybe we could also open it.
Yeah, please, of
for
course.
the audience.
I mean, it's Poppy's work.
Questions or feedback.
It's just a really short question. Who deserves the poets? Like, how do you decide who receives the poets and who does not? Like, okay, in the one case you said, okay, now the forbidden signs, they made sense to you, so you kind of think maybe nice people deserve this poem, but what's the approach there?
That's a very good question. In Toronto, it was frozen everywhere. So I decided it's not about deserving. Let's not say that. Actually, everyone who was curious and was a passerby, I would give them a poem. I didn't pick between people who were passing by. But between houses, when it was like their interest was frozen and I wasn't able to cross, then I was like, okay, I cannot do this, I don't want to break my leg just to deliver a poem. But
you're not very committed, Poppy, I'm sorry.
But I guess it's for each city I printed, because it was very time consuming. Just imagine that when a door was very beautiful or there were flowers around the house, I think I was more motivated to deliver them a poem. But
so the other part of the process, which Poppy explained to me previously, was that sometimes people write back.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of exchange that happens from the delivery where they're invited, I think, to respond if they want to, by chance as well. So from my perspective, I think maybe that what we're talking about is also the sense that maybe there's a reception there for you. There's some sort of sense of exchange might be possible, rather than sort of just involuntary poem delivery, looking for some sort of sign of a glimpse of an openness in someone's way of living, or that, like that for me might be how you might choose that, because the magic also happens if they choose to respond. And how many responses have you had? Like, what kind of responses have you had?
I didn't check my Tehran's mailbox yet. I was here. But in Toronto, I had several fantastic responses. For example, it seems like I delivered a ginkgo biloba leaf to someone, and they wrote me back with a painting that they paint from a tree that they like in Japan in their neighborhood. And they told me that I once lived beside a ginkgo biloba, and I really like the way that you deliver me a leaf of ginkgo biloba. So just imagine how some of them were very, very kind. But I'm not sure if I did it for in expectation of any responses. I felt like lots of us are not feeling, don't know how to respond to such a thing.
Sure.
For me, because I already had a bucket of poetry installed, I don't know if I told you about that, installed in the street, and I wear a camera. I just recorded the process. It was at the starting phase of COVID. I wasn't thinking that anyone is going to touch those poems, and everyone was still wearing gloves. It was a starting point. People were curious. They were picking between these poems, and the bucket was full of poems, about like 50 poems, and then it was emptied after less than half an hour. So it wasn't for response. It was somehow a response.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because there's this concept that poetry is a very difficult art form to share, or that it's not as popular with people reading poetry books and things like that. But maybe poetry by chance is really the way to have poetry in your life. It's interesting. It's a book of poems is so much more difficult than a poem that you kind of, you often read a poetry book by opening and then just whatever you see. I very rarely myself would start at the beginning of a poetry book and read it through, but scholars would, of course.
Yeah.
So it's like you say, it's sort of like a methodology rather than necessarily a sort of.
And sometimes they call this office book like a Bible for Iranian,
right,
or something that they always going to and maybe find some answer.
Yeah, sure.
And
which is the divine, the Hoffer's divine and Goethe's divine. Yeah.
Katie, how is it in where you live.
Melbourne,
This is like also have it poetry in the civilization or in the culture, in the way of thinking, in the way of expression, some role?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, so I mean, we have graffiti, but it's more single words or agitation. It's not so much about sort of this romantic kind of concept. And one of the things I've really loved about talking and walking with Poppy is it reminds me of this kind of genre like magic realism, where I almost can picture her kind of levitating and climbing up over the roofs in Graz. Like I can see that she almost wants to sort of get through the city, you know, in this almost impossible way. Whereas I think in Australia, it's much more sort of urban realism in a way. My experience of the city, it's a bit more, it's less poetic in a way, which creates a different type of poetic. You know, for me, a lot of it's a bit painful, you know, like watching birds trying to eat a cigarette butt, or, you know, just seeing these people coming up against each other in a way for me, which is where I find these kind of moments. And I'm often not recording them at the time, but that's the kind of thing. And then suddenly you see the nature comes through that. So, you know, I think we have a really strong relationship to nature in Australia and in Melbourne as well. But I don't think we weave poetry and language through our culture in the same way that you do in the Persian culture. Yeah.
I once read a book about indigenous in Australia. I'm not sure about the name, but it was like they believe that their ancestor created the world via walking. Like they are creating with naming stuff around them, a stone. So it's a beautiful poetic pathway.
Yeah. Well, those poetic pathways are really, I guess that's where knowledge is held in the environment, not in the language. So the trees and the rivers have the stories, not the words about them. So you literally have to walk back through those to know something about those cultures and that story, and they call them songlines.
Songlines,
yeah. And it's not literally about singing, it's about the country singing. So there's a equal relationship between the human and the environment in that culture. And so the environment speaks, not the human. So that's where the songlines come from, is that the country sings, not the human. So you have to move back through the country to know what your ancestors, what those stories were. And one really devastating thing about that is that climate change is affecting those stories, because we're losing trees and rivers that hold that knowledge. And that's where the knowledge stays. It doesn't come back out into a Bible. It doesn't come back out even into painting. Paintings now have replaced some of that. So the traditional paintings that Indigenous Australians use is not, I mean, they used to do that, but it's a 60,000-year living culture. And the dot painting is actually quite recent. And in a way, it's a way to map the songlines, to show from the view down what these journeys are, where the mountains are and where the trees are and where the rivers are, so that they can kind of map them in this particular way. But it's a really interesting, I guess, well, not interesting, actually. It's sort of another point of difficulty for us with climate change and with the way the landscape's changing so quickly now. It's a really sort of, that people are losing their Bible, which is difficult, but good to talk about. Yeah, what about here in Graz? Like, I mean, what about you guys in terms of walking here and the relationship between what we've been talking about and your experience in Austria? I mean, are you feeling like it's something you relate to, this kind of pathway through, or do you feel like when you're living in your home city that you're just like moving around, or, you know, do you have this experience? Because like, I guess the thing that's different for me as well from Australia is that you shift into different countries so quickly. Like yesterday I went to lunch in Slovenia. So for me, that's like such a strange thing to do, because I live in such a huge country and there's no way to pop off to lunch in New Zealand or, you know, even Indonesia. I wouldn't make it there by, you know, dinner. So yeah, I'm curious about that shift as I crossed the border and the language changed. There was this sort of these small shifts, and you know, I'm just so curious about the different type of embodied knowledge that you hold of these shifts, because for me, I'm sort of searching for it, but maybe the country's less divided, maybe Europe's less divided than I think of it, you know, like it's a border, so I have to cross with a passport, and I'm Australian, so that's got a whole sort of separate thing for me. But I mean, is a border in Europe? I mean, how much is that shift kind of feeling that when you move into that space that you have some fresh eyes like Poppy's talking about, or is it sort of, is there a sort of, you know, that moment where the water comes onto the sand and it's not the ocean and it's not also the sand yet, it's that in-between space. I'm curious if that's there between the borders, or whether it feels like a separate.
Any comments? Expression. I mean, I have a question. Is a language not also a border? Because lots of times when you translate some poetry, it just loses the whole meaning for me. Because I woke up with two languages, Farsi and German. And sometimes I wanted to switch, or maybe when I talk with friends with those also have these two language, then we just switch into another channel, because it does not work like that. And the way we see our world or our city, architect, nature, maybe in this part I also see nature, but mostly it's about culture. It's about streets, breaks, color. For example, what I saw in Tehran while I was living there, you probably did that too. On some streets, when you walk on this, when people could mostly have lots of traffic, then you will see on flyers on the ground, they're sticking lots of merchandise things. I call this number
on the road.
Excuse me?
On the road, they're sticking it on the road or sticking it on the car?
No, on the
Pavement. Pavement, yeah.
Yes, and this is something that why is it like that? Because people are always looking down. Are they depressed, or what is that, like a trick? And of course, because you said that, I was really like, one day you see a door and you love it, and the next day you see and you say, what's so beautiful? And or you see more top of the buildings and looking for some beauty.
Yeah. So the fluctuation is inside you, not in the external world. Exactly. Yeah, which is, but I mean, language, I think, is I mean, Poppy's always trying to get lost, and I have a really bad sense of direction. So I haven't got that problem, but I'm more well-behaved, I think. So she's naughty and I'm good, but I'm lost and she wants to get lost. So when I'm good, I find it hard to walk around because I don't know what the rules are here, you know. So sometimes, like, I've had my people wag their fingers at me in Austria more than anywhere I've ever been, actually. And so I'm constantly trying to navigate my sense of trying to be a good citizen here, where I'm trying not to, like, get arrested or something for doing something stupid. I don't fear the police, it's not about that, but it's more just about not really understanding the social conduct, I guess. And I think Poppy doesn't, she sort of, like I said, there's this sort of magic realism to Poppy, where I think she'd like to just go through all the borders everywhere on a broomstick and just everything's like that. And for me, I think I find the language barrier more of a border, because I'm overthinking whether this is permissible or, what is the sort of response, so I tend to sort of stay a little bit off I try not to be so visible, maybe.
For example, here in Graz, sometimes I see some graffitis or stencil with Arabic letters.
Oh, yeah.
And this is also a code, maybe in a political way to communicate with each other.
Nice.
Or hide some. Maybe it's also about poetry. If it's something really political for some countries, that they have a dictatorship, so they develop some kind of, in poetry you can read it many ways.
Yeah.
And you have such different associations about the same word.
Yeah.
But when you're talking normal, you don't have that. You have to be clear, you try not to misunderstood.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I don't need it so much here, I think. Maybe it's also about surrounding or the system. Really.
Yeah, the system I think is really interesting, and every country has a slightly different orientation towards their own system, so I feel that physically a lot of the time when I'm moving around, or I'm not sure, what the system is in a place. So it's interesting. It's an interesting way to try and sort of test what's possible just by taking a camera and walking. That's actually quite revealing about a place in terms of how navigable it is. But it's a relationship between you and the space, I think. It's not, I bring a lot to that. It's not about the country. It's about what you're absorbing or what you're able to sort of read from the space that you're walking through.
Do you think also we are through it?
Yeah.
Because the brunch is also
finished,
the buffet
yeah,
is waiting. But maybe before we do that, I know that you have tomorrow this performance.
That's right.
And maybe you just want to say some words about it. So please, people, come to that show.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is I'm just doing an improvised performance at Schillerstraße Atelier Schillerstraße tomorrow at 6 p.m. So all welcome.
Small mention there. Shaghayegh, thank you very much for being our guest for this.
Thank you for having me.
Short time. It's always very intense, and 2-3 times in your case, was it just one month? It's just like, what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
After all, thank you very much for this
Thank you for having me.
talk. Very informative. Thanks also. Thank you for yes, here. And any questions or feedback in our online stream? All right. So have a nice day.
Yeah, thanks so much for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.